Hello everybody, today I will be making a survival bow using a machete. Let's get hacking. So starting off with a piece of wood. This is something called dogwood, which we get here in Australia. I tried to find, I experimented with using various other kinds of wood, but I couldn't find anything that worked. I made 2 other bows, both of which snapped when I was trying to string them. So this is my 3rd attempt. So, 3rd time lucky, I guess. So, starting off with the piece of wood. So, you want to find where the center of the bow is, and this piece of wood is just a little bit longer than my bowstring, which is what you want. So, I'll put the bowstring up here, string it all the way across, and you want roughly your hand width spare from how long the bowstring is, so that you can get a nice curve and that the string doesn't fold in on the bow. Once you find where the middle of the bow is, which is about here for me, mark it. So the next step will be making the arms or the wings of the bow, depending on what you want to call them. So every branch or tree or whatever you're using will have a natural bow in it. And that's true for all branches. So if you look down the tree or log, you'll be able to see which way it curves. So you can see it bows slightly to the right. Turn it 90 degrees. Oh, sorry, not 90 degrees. Anyway, it bows to the left now. So this is the center or the inside of the bow. So we're going to be wanting to remove material from the inside of the wings on this side, but we're not going to remove any from the handle. And while I'm removing material from the inside of the bow, I'll take this opportunity to explain to you that my bowstring was way too short. And right after I finished this bow, it did end up snapping on me. So when you make your bow, make it at least 6 feet in length. So I finished this side here. It's got a nice little bend to it. But yeah, it bends nicely. And now it's time for this side. Another mistake that I made with this bow was working with the wood while it was wet. This is probably true for most woods, but you want to let them dry out for at least a week before you use them. And what happened was, since I didn't wait, I ended up bruising the wood, which created a weak point. And yeah, so just give the wood a good week to dry before you try and string it. So now that I've got both the limbs cut, it's got a very nice profile. It's time to strip away all the bark, because one of the risks with making a bow out of dogwood is dogwood rots very easily when it's wet. So I want to get all the bark off there, and then this bow will have to dry for a couple of weeks before I can use it consistently, but I'll try and get off a few shots while it's still wet. Notching time.
And this is the point where I messed up. I should have waited for the bow to dry out, but I was impatient and I decided to string it while it was still green, which created a weak spot in the wood.
So I finished the bow, and once I strung it, it had good draw weight to it, but I got overconfident. There were some little things I wanted to iron out with the string off, and as I took the string off, I heard little crackly noises. So I've looked the bow over. I don't see any cracks, but yeah, we'll see when the wood's all dried out, and hopefully there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, so it's been about a week since I finished my bow, and it's dried out nicely. But as it's dried out, it's stiffened a lot to the point where I'm worried that it'll just snap if I try and string it. So I'm just gonna go over it with a file, take out all these ugly notches from the machete, and thin it out a bit more and see if I can get a bit of bend back into this thing. Right, so I got the bow all sanded out. I've thinned the limbs down quite a bit. So I'd say they're about 1.5 millimeters thick at the thickest point. For all you Americans, I have no clue what that is. But hopefully it bends, because it looks really pretty now, all that I've ground it and sanded it. And I just hope it doesn't break. Okay, so despite my fears, it actually managed to string okay. String is mostly centered, but that bend that happened in the limb, you can see that it's still there, and it has actually cracked, which is a pity because it actually looks really beautiful, almost like an elven bow. But I made the mistake, so anyone watching this video doesn't have to. And I'll go shoot this thing, and hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face. So I'm getting ready to shoot the bow now. And because it does have that little kink in it, I will be wearing eye protection. And I'm also going to draw the bow back in increments just to see how it performs under different levels of stress. Maybe I get all the way to full draw. But yeah, with that defect in the limb, I'm not sure how it'll go. So, as I suspected, I wasn't able to get full draw on this bow. But, it's got a pretty good draw weight to it. But it did start to make little crackly noises, so that made me a little bit hesitant to do full draw. And, I don't think I will be able to with this. That weak spot is bending even more now. And it did make it really difficult to aim, but hey, if you're gonna give this bow a go, don't do what I did. Make the limbs thinner, let it dry out properly before you try and string it. And if I could give another piece of advice, it would be make it longer. Don't do what I did with a short bow. Go for a full-length long bow. 6 or 7 feet. But yeah, I would call this a semi-success. And hope you liked it.